Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
So, got a question for the audience. How do you stop the quiet resentment and burnout that's creeping into each of your businesses and your relationships, particularly your spouse? And that's what Dale and Trevor will dive into today, showing you how to set healthy boundaries, restore energy, and turn your partnership into a powerful advantage. Stay tuned as they reveal how harmless leadership and their separated togetherness method can transform the way you work, live, and lead so your business grows without draining the well you both depend on. Our guests today are Dale Allen and Trevor Bryce Stevenson from ConsciousLead. So Dale and Trevor are the co-founders of ConsciousLead, a leadership coaching firm dedicated to helping people lead with clarity, compassion, and purpose. Trevor is a seasoned leadership coach and adventurer who has guided teams across 30 plus countries, blends grit, humor, and creativity to help leaders shift perspective, reduce harm, and spark more joy in their work. Meanwhile, Dale, also a leadership and life coach with a master's in human kinetics and certifications in executive coaching, emotional intelligence, and facilitation, is passionate about preventing toxic cultures and fostering authentic, values-driven connections. Together, they both bring 2 decades of experience guiding transformation for leaders, teams, organizations, proving that healthy relationships are a powerful business strategy. Their partnership, both in life and in business, offers a candid look at navigating burnout, creating boundaries, and building stronger, more sustainable collaborations. Geez, I wish I'd met with you earlier. Mind you, I'm still married, so we're still working good at home. Folks, welcome. And do you have a favorite quote or saying for the two of you?
Oh, I just came up with
That's not a quote. That's not a quote.
I just came up with a new one that I like, which is "Come what may, I'll be okay."
Bit of rhythm there, Ali.
I love that, Trevor. Ooh. So I own one of the domains I own is leaderwear, and I want to get some of these Trevorisms, put on shirts and get those out into the world.
Very nice.
Keep an eye out for a store near you.
Do you have memes on that too, or what?
Well, it'll be all sorts of stuff.
Coffee mug later on. Trev's words of wisdom. I think that's awesome.
That's so good. Mine is by James Baldwin, and it's "Love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without, and no, we cannot live within. Love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without, and no, we cannot live within." You can tell I'm a lover.
You know what? That's a good thing. If you were a hater, then this whole conversation, this would be really interesting. And it'd make an interesting podcast, but that's not the direction we're going on because you're talking about working with synergy and togetherness. So what did total togetherness look like before things started to break down?
Trevor and I have worked together for 20 plus years, and we've lived together for that long. We've been married for that long, and we have quite a synergy. We've got a great banter. We've got children. We've got a great mix. What it did happen though was,
I think the pre, and you're asking about the pre, right? And it was bliss. It was we're no kids, no home and responsibilities, and we own this business. We were a licensee of an international organization. We're going to different conferences around the world, and the work that we were doing, it has always just filled us up. We get to connect with people who want to learn and change and grow and set goals and achieve them and such. And so life of rally kind of thing was it was super fun.
working out together.
Yeah,
Right.
coaching. We coached sport and stuff, and both led in our own ways. That came a little later, but Dale was leading women in fitness, and I did a little bit of that with men. Dad bod to rad bod.
Hey, what are you saying? What are you saying?
We all go through our phases, man.
Oh, this is a phase. Oh, even better.
Yeah. You have time. You've got time.
One thing that I'm doing over 400 podcasts, usually entrepreneurs, they usually suggest that while they were building, it was full out and it cost me a marriage. And it comes right after, and I built this and it cost me a marriage. It's literally in almost every sentence. I want your feedback on that.
Yeah,
I
makes sense.
can see how that happens. Like that you're trying to hold a relationship, like two different relationships or more. Your business is a relationship, right? So your everything that you eat, sleep, drink, you're thinking about is that. And then you've got these human beings, your partner, your spouse, your wife, your husband, that of course there's a relationship and they're both calling for your attention. They're both calling for your energy. They're both calling for you to show up and be there for them. And so that creates stress and tension and pressure, right? So I can totally see how that happens where you're birthing this thing, this business, and at the same time there's this evolution, this growth of your partnership that might not be getting the attention that it needs.
And I think one of where the real challenge arises is that we've never been taught how to communicate. We learn how to talk and therefore pattern ourselves after our parents' habits and their conditioning from their parents and so on. And as you fine gentlemen know, I work a lot in the space with men. And so if we don't know how to communicate what's going on, our fear and our stress and our pressure about being at work and wanting to make that happen, which is coupled then with this societal norm of I have to provide and I have to succeed and I have to show up and not fail and all of this all lives within me. And as Dale was saying, when my partner then wants more of me, more softness, more empathy, more connection, more time, I don't know how to balance that. And so I pull away probably more into work, or I try to do more on both sides. And this is why we hear from so many founders and people in business, entrepreneurs who do burn out. And so they can't maintain it all. And so, yeah, that leads to that demise, unfortunately.
It's interesting. I've got two questions in the go here because you just talked about spouses. I'm going to add another layer in here that's not kind of where we were originally thinking. What about offspring?
Oh yeah.
Or offspring, that's that who you procreated with or you are in charge of, but also if you have seniors living in your place too. Does this cover that ground too?
Yeah, it does. It does ultimately, like right at the root, right? Is that, you're just holding, like you're holding relationships in all of these ways and trying to make sure that you don't drop anything. But your work is tied to your survival, right? Your work needs money. So the way that you'll want to put energy towards you're not getting paid, I mean, hope not, to be a dad or a mom or a partner. So it's not that we think of that in that way, but we're so committed to making that money, having that business go, or doing so great at our job that we can make more money so that we can then nurture these relationships. We can take care of our children, our siblings, our parents. And so it all comes into play because it still is a balancing act. And I think that's what becomes so challenging when this is like at a deep level kind of connected to your self-worth and your ability to provide, right?
And so we're a leader in every one of these roles, right? And leader being that reality that how I show up has an impact on others. If we can consider that the definition of leadership, how others are influenced by my presence, then not having those communication skills, by and large, all of us growing up. And so all of us have found our way in different ways, but without that being a a common skill set to communicate when times are tough and there's tension, whether it's parent, child, partner, or the other parent, child, my descendants, then we struggle with it, right? And that's a real important aspect of the work that we do, and why it's a gift that we work in this space while being partnered in business.
It's all gifts. If you're wondering, like it's always amazing, just so you know.
It's the wrapping sometimes.
Little crusty. Crusty little stuffing.
Yeah, when I'm in this life coaching business that I'm in, I get everyone's email and the themes that, how to bounce back after burnout, or what do you do when you've broken the marriage? What are the warning signs where you could actually catch somebody before the ship hits the rocks?
That is so good, Wayne. Yeah, so good. I think we don't pay enough attention to our own warning signs. Like I think well, that's what we coach to is the alarm bells that go off. There are people will often express this fatigue. They're not sleeping. We call them work mares. They're waking up in the night with nightmares from work, and they're not seeing. So they speak of these conflicts between, I said I was going to be home at such time, like let's say 4 o'clock. I'm missing my son or daughter's, sport or recital or something like that. Or I haven't seen my spouse. We're not even dating. We're just like 2 ships passing. I think looking out for those kinds of things, like there's usually a physical thing that shows up. I'm tired, wired, can't sleep, work mares, not eating, skipping lunch, those kinds of things actually show up. And then like the physiology is there's like, we kind of describe it, Trevor, as like this nervous tension. Like I just kind of feel like I'm in this hypervigilance. I'm always watching. Like I just can't settle, that kind of.
And with those being the internal ones, I think the external ones it starts with requests. It starts with people asking for you to be there more, a sadness around you not being able to be at the recital, your kids mentioning it to your spouse. And it moves from a request and a want to a demand and some sort of antagonizing about you not being there. And then what we realize is a partner doesn't want to live that way. They don't want to be that person who's frustrated and tense. And they're like, this isn't worth it to me. I don't like being that person. And you're not changing. And so I'm leaving.
So why do you think resentment builds up? If you're cohabiting together, right? Versus, let's say, you could have a business partner in a joint venture, not live in the same place. And imagine in both instances, you could have moments going, that really annoys me, right? Or you're in the middle of something where you got the stone in the shoe type thing, and your focus is on the stone, which no one else knows is there, right? But why does that resentment build? Is it because there's a hidden pain, or is it a kind of displaced frustration, for lack of better words? What's your thoughts on that?
I know that it's both. And what happens is because of communication or lack thereof, is naturally you start running in your own lane. And so like you named it so beautifully when you were saying that, whether this is a partnership like Trevor and I, where we're also married, or a business partnership, you do naturally start taking on these roles, right? And you start building almost like this expertise in these different roles, right? So what can happen is there's a perception of I am doing more because there are things that I'm doing that you don't know, like you don't understand the things that I'm thinking about, how I take it home at night, and you've got your own thing too. So as a partnership, as Trevor and I are partners both in life and at work, that happens both at home and in the business where like I feel like I'm holding some things that Trevor has no idea about, right? And at home it's the same. Like there are things that I'm holding that he has no idea about. If it wasn't for me, I'm saying this in quotation marks for the listeners, but if it wasn't for me, these things wouldn't get done. And I think naturally that happens. I mean, would you say that happens for you too, Nature?
First thing I thought about when you were asking that is like everyone thinks they're doing more.
I mean, I'm right, of course, but go on.
About me doing more. No, I mean, that's it. And it becomes a sense of fairness. And then we just keep coming back to that. You see, it's our inability to communicate that. And so we do a passive aggressive, we do a request, we do a demand, and it just gets a little bit, the closer you are, the more baggage, the more history, the more we have these thoughts. Right? And so the more effort and work it takes to really undo that and be very open with what's, like Dale said, what's actually going on inside me. And then how do I communicate that? Yeah, that can be a scary thing.
One thing that interests me from being in this coaching for a while, talking to other coaches that have been at it a while, there are things that you learned early or even bought a franchise for that was told to you was the truth. And even at some level, when you were told that it was the truth, and then years pass and situations and systems change, and you risk becoming the barefoot shoemaker. What if you had to give yourself a head shake and go, well, that was true then, and you've had to revisit or reshape or refocus now?
I think one of the biggest things when we started, when we had that license of this international organization. It was a leadership development. It was one of the largest in the world and created in the 60s. And they were real thought leaders, which was great. And the work that we were doing with them, they had, the big binders and the cassettes and then the CDs. And
Do people know what?
I don't know,
Oh, you're going to make 8-track and VHS and beta, just add it in there.
chisel things out on them.
We don't skew to the Gen Z, Dale, honest.
Yeah. But one of the reasons we left there is the work was very much focused on the work. It was about how we become more effective at performing, at productivity. And and that was true, and we could see it. But the question really became, well, why, if we know, because we realized everybody knows all the ways to be more effective, more efficient, more productive, right? So why aren't we doing it? And so that was sort of our next evolution, as a deeper understanding beyond the tools and the practices of how do I see myself as the tool and the practice that is at the center of all of this, and what's going on. So what are the hidden beliefs within me that has me showing up in a way that is causing distraction or distance or these things. So we really moved from an external physical thing to an internal and a very feeling and understanding human nature thing, so that we could shift the conversation internally and between.
And what I love about that, like with your question, Wayne, it's like, it's so fun to kind of look at a tool and say, oh, like we know deeply what's happening then. So in other words, I think what can happen is, it's for human nature, we love tools. Like that's what we've noticed in North America. We love them. And people will go, no, I already know that tool. I already know this thing that you do. I already know that. And they'll dismiss it.
Or
So
they'll say, ooh, a new tool.
Yeah. Like the candy store.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to just go to look at what's universal. And the tool is really any tools that we know in this work is to help give us access to a deeper understanding of our nature. We just thought, well, why don't we just go straight to that? Let's just actually really look at all the stuff that we've been talking about is really just related to our communication, isn't it? Right? Our relationships, isn't it? It's the way that we feel, being able to sense when something is leading me on the trail for burnout. That stuff won't go away. It doesn't matter what tool you use, what fad is here, what AI tells us. This human stuff is just so, it will always be here. It's universal. And that I would say was our biggest shift, and also why we ended up leaving the franchise, because it was like we could just keep seeing that the same thing, no matter what. We saw the same patterns were happening. There were human patterns. And so we thought, well, why don't we teach people about human patterns so that they could see them, sense them beforehand. And they would have practices to do that would help them not fall into that rut, and then practices to get out of a rut. So it's that universality that to me, like, has just been so much fun.
Fun and like puzzling and all the rest.
Like you've talked about tools and things coming up, and you have the week on and week off. Is this like wax on, wax off, or what's the scoop here? Tell me how that fits in. I'm making slight light of it, but not totally.
Oh my gosh, it has been probably a big savior of the marriage, and that's the business. But did you want to talk about the genesis?
Sure. I'm going to do my short story, but the real story is my dad had just died, and we'd spent a year with our kids were young, and we had spent a year going back and forth to where I grew up in. So it's like 5 hours away from where we live right now. And we were going quite often. I was taking the kids. Trevor was coming for a little bit, and he was here back at home in the office, really holding things down. And there was just so much movement with going back and forth, and of course going through the process of being with my dad and family as he was dying. And we were already he had just died, and we were already going to Jamaica for a wedding that was already planned, and we'd had a service and everything. And when we were in Jamaica, Wayne and Bernie, it was so wonderful to just be unscheduled. It was incredible. We weren't rushing to anything. And that drive, the 5-hour drive is never 5 hours. It's actually like 7 to 8. So it was starting to wear on us energetically and all of that. When we were in Jamaica, though, I realized I had decision fatigue. Like Trevor was planning our trip because we had, before we were going to the wedding, which was in a resort, We were in at Airbnbs. It just was too much. I couldn't. He'd ask me like, "Where do you want to stay?" I couldn't answer. It was just too much. And so I realized that I couldn't wait for another vacation to just release and relax. Like I needed more. I wanted to see that happen more regularly. And I was afraid to pose this to Trevor, but I thought, maybe if we do like when people are separated, although we're not, but if we did that where we had a week on, week off, then we could each have that experience of rejuvenating, of actually vacationing, if you call it that, but actually not being responsible while we're living in our households and not waiting till we were all together going to some kind of vacation.
Vacation a couple of years, a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
and we would see that, that there are now so many couples separating and divorcing. And when you look at their life as individuals, once they get over whatever kind of harm and conflict they're going through, or maybe they don't. But 1 week, there's that individual who's fully on and responsible and embracing that role and taking care of the kids and anything and everything that needs to happen. And the other one's out dancing, golfing, doing whatever the heck they want because nobody's watching. Nobody's got a finger on the pulse of where they need to be when. And we're like, well, wait, why do you have to be separated or divorced to do it this way? And so we just implemented that into our life, and that's got to be 7 years ago or something.
It's something like that.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
It's and so it's been really amazing for us because again, we spend so much time together and responsible for everything. And what we were describing earlier about that sort of unspoken animosity around, oh, who's going to mention dinner first, or who I picked up the kids yesterday, yeah, but I do it more often, and it just eliminates that completely. And so there's a level up that needs to be happening in our own organization. And for me, around food and stuff like that, it's not a strong suit,
Like
and
for cooking.
yeah,
Right.
just planning all the meals and stuff like that. It's like, so it was cool in that regard once you take ownership of that. And the kids they're like, whose week is it now? And they direct their messages to that person. So it's good.
You run a remote business and you're a couple. So at 4:45, do one of you go out into the driveway, touch the car, come back and go, "Honey, I'm home"?
Sometimes we can't find each other in the house. We're hiding somewhere or whatever, but no, we will hear the bus at 4:05 and like, oh, I guess work's done. I still got 2 more hours of work. The kids are home. But no, it's all just free flow floating around, And I guess one of the challenges is that we know that, and so we've had to grow better at that as well, of not to interrupt and be more self-directed, self-sufficient in finding our own answers to things, because it's too easy to just kind of say, "Bill, where's this thing?" or "How do I do that?" or whatever. And so and that can create distraction and frustration as well.
Following up my question, I was being a little silly. But one thing that I'm wondering about being a home-based business is how do you leave the day at work when you're having supper or watching television how do you mentally close that day when you're in the same place with the same people?
I find it challenging still.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, first of all, we don't watch TV, so that's an that would have me fully turn off.
Oh my gosh, it'd be so Trevor. I wish there wasn't TV.
I keep trying, but no, it's an interesting thing, Wayne. I think in that our life and our business are so closely integrated in what we do.
In a good
We have, I get messages and they're from friend clients, or guys in the group and saying this is going on, and it's like I want to be there for them, and it fills me up. If it doesn't, or if I'm busy, it's okay to just say that too. But it's about communication, it's about connection, it's about love, it's about making the world a better, less harmful place to be. And so I don't need to switch it off. Like there isn't always great intensity, and even through the day, like yesterday I went and saw a friend, and we hiked up into the hills into a lake, and that was a couple of hours, and then I worked till 9 o'clock, and so that we just kind of flow with that balance. And we certainly do take time off, but we're also always on, if that makes any sense.
No, actually.
I do want to say one thing though, that there are times when I just don't want to talk about work though.
Mhm.
I just don't want to like, sometimes we'll be, but it's true. Like, I think the gift is that, sometimes we do get to do that. I went for a run this morning and I will do something like that at lunch, or Trevor will go and garden. So I do love that we don't have these strict bookends in that way. There are times when it creeps in where Trevor was ready to talk about work. He usually does it right before he's about to fall asleep. He'll ask me this amazing question because he knows he can go straight into snoring. And I am like, bing. And so it's a little cheeky. That's why I'm saying it here, folks. Yes, he does that. He absolutely does that. So it can be, anyway, all that to say is it can be tricky because when I get into my vibe, I am like, I'm changing the world. And so my thoughts can be going, and Trevor will be like,
And then I know there's going to be a great answer some morning.
so rude. It's so rude. And
Oh, Trevor, you're not the only one that's ever done that. I've come home from a midnight shift. It's like 3 a.m. and the missus is fast asleep. And I go, "Oh, hi, honey." And then I then asked, "You're gonna like this? Here is a nonsensical, philosophical point. If a light is traveling across space and you see the light and it hits the house, is it still capturable energy?" Someone in the household has taken a course where it says that's no. The answer is no. But are you sure? And then next thing you know, 3, 2, 1, I'm out. Meanwhile, my wife is fully awake going, "This is why you can't." The whole logic sequence kicks in, right? And I'm gone, and she can hear me snoring. The funny part is, though, years later, you hear someone talking about astronomy and physics and going, actually, it is capturable. No, not worthwhile, but it's capturable. Just so you know, that I thought, random thought whipping through. Yes, yes.
so I see that you and Trevor went to the same school then. It's what's really showing up for you now.
I'm suspecting.
The school of male upbringing.
Oh my goodness.
I'm enjoying this tremendously. I love coaching. I love training. I love living lives. But my audience, what are some 2 or 3 things that says, I need to talk to these people? I didn't even know I didn't know. Help me. How do we dial in on how they know they need you?
Yeah, it's so good.
Is it just family therapy that you work with, or family, or husband and wife or spousal counseling that you work in, or is it business too?
No, it's certainly, I mean, we've been at this for 20 plus years and we work with every industry imaginable, whether it's tech or manufacturing or retail and sales. And we work a lot in the public sector and healthcare and education. And so all over, absolutely. But it's very much at the human level. And so Dale had mentioned earlier about it, like first being like when you were asking about how we know that there's something we need to work on, and it comes up first within. And that's where, for your audience, the people who are listening, we kind of all know that things aren't right, that things aren't I'm not taking care of myself in a way that is good. The impact that I have at work isn't what I want it to be, and or at home. And so I can feel that distance and I don't know what to do with it. That is the big thing. Like there's less joy, less fun, less connection in my life. And I'd love that to be different because people start to realize that we have a limited time here and it's not all about scaling that business and going public and, moving on, exit, get another one, repeat. Those who want to be well then can lead well. That's, I guess, who we have really.
Yeah. When you're seeing things that keep repeating, so either you're ruminating on something or you're seeing a pattern that exists between you and a partner, a child, a parent, a business partner, a client, something where you just feel like this isn't right. We keep trying different things and nothing's working. People will come at that point. I like to see you before then because usually at that point you're quite exhausted. So people will come when they're about to burn out or they have burnt out. But so there's then we're often in quite difficult experiences where people have kind of lost hope and they're looking for another way. And why our work seems to be so helpful or as an offering for them is because we're looking at root level things, like what is happening at the root that's keeping this pattern alive. And when you start to become aware of the pattern, and of course that's one thing, but then it's like, of course you're looking at then how do I get out of this pattern? I don't want to keep repeating it. And so because we talked about this being harmless leadership is when you are in a funk, when you are in a pattern that isn't serving you, when it's you feeling stuck, it is a pain and it creates some kind of, we call that harm because you don't know how to get out of it. Sometimes that is what the harm looks like, but we call this harmless leadership or nonviolent leadership. Because when you are looking at some kind of change, you look at where you are right now. Like if it's your business and you say you want to scale it by, I don't know, like 20%, whatever it is, or you're having a problem with an employee, means that where you are right now, you're trying to change. You're trying to go from there to a better place. In a change from that place to where you want to go, there's uncertainty. You just don't even know what's going to happen. You have no idea. And our brain does not like uncertainty. Doesn't like it. It gets vexed. It gets mad. It will tell you that you're an imposter. All of those things are true. And so our coaching is really that we know that's going to happen in uncertainty. We want you to navigate in a way that that does not take you out of your path, like or off of your path. And that's why we talk about non-harming, because all of those thoughts that will take you out of the way, like it not help you go in the trajectory that you're going for, is what will get in the way and keep you stuck. And so our approach is a non-harming approach in that way. Or when you're having to have a conversation with your partner and you're so worried that they're going to say something awful and that you're not going to be able to stand them or
It's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
So what is the way so that you don't create further harm? So our approach in one-on-one coaching or in team coaching or when we're working with founders is what is a way that you can prevent further harm or reduce harm that's already happened or recover from harm. So it's got that kind of approach.
No pillow fight.
What's that?
No pillow fight.
Well, it's basically a pillow fight. If you see, and that's the soft part, right? Feather pillow, not rock pillow. So that's good, isn't it?
Yeah. No, not a bag of hammers. No.
Right?
No,
Right.
that's a different type of relationship.
Trevor, I find interesting is our very language in management from the 50s and 60s is all about command and control. And we built an entire system around command and control. And you are the antithesis. You're the 180 different. What was the breakthrough in your mind that suggested that model was broken?
well, it's what I grew up in. So I knew it wasn't fun. And I think it was just recognizing over and over again the impact of that. And it's different, of course, if there's a command and control situation where, you're trying to put out a fire or you're in a war zone or, that's first responders, that's their world. And we work with a lot of that. We work with the police, and we work with fire, and we worked in Department of National Defense and public safety and all these different places where there's an element of that. And the characteristics are then naturally get carried over. And if you see the challenges that creates, right? It creates a structure that people can follow, but people don't like being told what to do. Right? They like being invited into a space. They like being honored for their own thoughts and creativity, and they want their own personal situation to be considered. And in a command and control, that isn't happening. And so you find that people will do what they're told, but no more. And so the performance, the engagement, the level of trust, the effectiveness of the entire organization is diminished to whatever that leader is telling people they must do. And if that becomes too much, then people just leave.
So if this resonates, if this is a whack in the side of the head and you go, I've got to talk to Dale and Trevor, how do we get a hold of you?
ConsciousLead.life is the website. Basically, it's all there. And ConsciousLead Life is kind of on all the platforms, and it'll be in the show notes here, I'm sure, but you can find us on the usual platforms for sure.
I want to say thank you to Dale Allen, Trevor, Bryce, Stevenson, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So Dale and Trevor help business partners and couples break free from burnout, hidden resentment, and by teaching them harmless leadership. Maybe a bit of a pillow fight or pillow talk, whichever comes along. Just remember not to do that at 3 a.m. and talk to your spouse or partner, whatever the circumstances. 3 a.m. One of them sleeping, leave them alone, and provide practical boundaries. They love guiding leaders to reconnect with their values, rebuild trust, and create workplaces where collaboration thrives.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.